Frank's Red Hot is the perfect blend of flavor and heat, so you can use an entire bottle to make recipes like buffalo chicken dip or buffalo nachos, or even things that don't start with buffalo. Frank's Red Hot, I put that on everything.
Hey, Craig.
Podcasting, gonna talk about some recruits and bitch about Ernie. Podcasting, there's not much to talk about, but hey, whatever. Yeah, man. That one's inspired by watching the end of Last Dance.
Yeah.
This weekend.
Yeah. Don't spoil it for me. I haven't watched all of it yet.
The Bulls win.
Oh, God damn you, Craig.
So suck it.
Son of a bitch.
Well, no reason to watch it now.
No, I've actually just had more fun, more than watching it. I've had more fun reading about everyone complaining about it. So,
yeah,
about how Jordan is, Jordan created this thing to boost his own, legacy. And well, of course he did. Yeah. Like, why else would he agree to do it? Like, come on. He's so petty. He'd never agree to something that he couldn't have his hands all over.
Exactly.
Come on. But you can also say that and also acknowledge that it's pretty cool. I've watched about 6. I think I watched 6. I think I've watched 6 of them. So, and it's cool. Like, it's fine. Like, it's fun to go back and remember what that era was like. And, Sonics are in there and, God rest their soul.
That part's not as fun.
No, but still, it's still the Sonics.
When he laughs at Peyton, I'm like, F you, man.
Yeah, that's true.
Peyton shut you down.
Gary Payton fucked his shit up. Nobody can tell me otherwise.
Yeah.
I'm also forever convinced that if Nate McMillan plays that whole series, we win.
Hey, put Peyton on Jordan.
Yeah.
From game 1, not in game 4 when you're desperate and down 3-0.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is podcast versus everyone, not Sonics Talk. I'm Craig Powers.
What? I'll bet our listeners appreciate that more than DORTMUND Talk, though.
Oh yeah. But with me is number one Borussia Dortmund fan.
Yeah,
Jeff
lifelong, my entire life.
Dude,
been a fan my whole life.
Our boys dominated. Fucking
yes, they did.
Schalke.
I know.
On Saturday.
If people are not on this Dortmund bandwagon, man, you better get on it. 4-0 win.
Jadon Sancho for another couple months.
Yeah. We got these awesome 19-year-olds for maybe a year or two. I don't know.
Yeah, it's fun. Dude, also, as a recommendation, we basically did this as a group of Coug Center writers. Yeah. Sorry, my dogs are barking. So we did this as a group of Coug Center writers, and it's been way more fun that way. We had 6 of us live, watching the game on Saturday morning and drinking beers on a Zoom at 7 o'clock in the morning. It was great.
It was spectacular.
That was super fun. We had PJ all the way from Germany. He's right there in the middle of the action.
Yeah.
He had to pay more for a jersey than we did.
That crazy. Was hilarious. He's like, I drive down the street, paid, what did he say, €70? Right? €85 for his, and I'm like,
$100.
I'm like, bro, I got mine for $23 on Amazon. Sorry, PJ.
Oh wow, the exchange rate is pretty close right now. €85 is $93.
Ooh,
wow.
That's not too bad.
Yeah, well, it's time to go to Europe.
Yeah, let's go. Hop on an airplane. Let's go.
Yeah.
Are they even letting us in at this point?
Oh, probably not. I think Canada.
I know
US
Canada will turn you away.
Yeah,
Canada will be like, "Sorry, you can't come in."
There's a guy in one of my the Floodland. Hello.
Yeah.
Oh, there's an autoplay video on a 247 article I had up about a recruit we're going to talk about later. Fuck your autoplay videos, 247. Get that shit out of here.
There's a special place in hell for autoplay videos.
Seriously, I'm sorry that screwed me up, but all of a sudden I heard this video in my ear. You probably didn't hear it at all because it was just in my headphones. So.
I did not. You were like, "Hello," and I'm like, "I'm right here."
Yeah, we're leaving this all in. All right, so What were we even talking about? Damn it.
We were talking about how Canada was like, "Fuck you, Americans!
Oh yeah,
you can't come in."
There's a guy in the Oakworks Floodland bottle group, which is like how I get all my Floodland beer, and you have to come pick up the beer at the brewery, and he can't even come down and get it.
Yeah.
So luckily the brewery is holding the beer for him, but yeah, so it's wild, but. Yeah, so we probably couldn't go see couldn't watch our Borussia Dortmund anyway. That was pretty weird. We could talk about that. This is general sports thing. That was pretty weird. A completely empty stadium. We saw some quote unquote empty stadiums for the college basketball tournaments, but there was quite a few fans and other people there. Or family and friends and stuff, to the point where you still saw people in the stands, but this was completely empty. 80,000 seat stadium.
Yeah.
Completely empty. It was nuts.
The sound was utterly bizarre. That's going to be if any of the U.S. sports follow suit and do the empty stadium thing, it's the weirdest thing is definitely just when they kick the soccer ball, it's just like boom, boom,
yeah.
boom. And then you can hear all the trash talk. And, for example, Borussia Dortmund's star new striker, Erling Haaland, was told to go do something uncouth with his grandmother during that match for the entire world to hear. So that's definitely an interesting aspect of this. It's weird, the crowd definitely brings, I don't know, I never really thought of sports, in the context of how important or how meaningful the crowd is to the whole experience. At least I never overtly thought about it. If that makes sense.
On television or on...
on television. How that is such a part of the ambiance. I mean, even if it's a Mariners game when they are 500 games out of first place and it's September and there's 2,000 people in the place, there's still a little bit of ambient sound. There's there are at least some people sitting there. If something interesting happens, people cheer. That kind of stuff. To have a sporting event completely devoid of that is utterly bizarre. It is one of the strangest things I think I've ever actually watched. And when we did the Zoom for the match together, I didn't really kind of notice it all that much because we were busy, talking to each other. I kind of had the volume mostly down.
Yeah.
But then the next day I watched the, Union Berlin, Bayern match. And that one I just kind of watched, and that was holy cow. I turned the volume up and I'm watching. I'm like, this is just the strangest thing.
It was also the commentators aren't there, and then they're also, I think, in different places. I don't think they're in the same place. So that was pretty weird. There was definitely low energy from the commentators, and I felt like the game started pretty sluggish, which they've had a long layoff, so that's one part, but another part, they just, Dortmund is known for having one of the, wildest sports atmospheres on the planet. And they just have nothing, that giant grandstand, with nobody in it. It's wild. And so it makes you wonder, when an American sports comes back, and if, will we have people in the stands in Martin Stadium come, the fall, and how that would feel and how that would look on TV when you don't have the students jumping and screaming and as the kind of ambient noise,
It was easily observable during the match how weird it was for the players to not have fans and to not have any of that, behind them. And like you mentioned with Dortmund, the stadium's crazy. I mean, the team matches that, right? I mean, they play this frenetic style. Typically, they press, they run, and it was just I don't know, it was just very reserved. And some of that probably, like you mentioned, had to do with the layoff, but some of that I'm sure just had to do with the lack of any sort of secondary energy coming from the crowd. And I'm curious how that, I don't know, like I'm curious how long, how much tolerance there is for that, if that makes sense. Like, with the Bundesliga, they're just trying to finish their season. Like they've got 8 match days left now. They're trying, they were already, 2/3 of the way through their season. They're really just trying to get to the end. So for all these other leagues that haven't started, for over here, baseball, when we think about football in the fall, and then, MLS, we're both Sounders fans. They had just started, so I think they kind of fall into the same category. I don't know how much appetite there's going to be for an extended run or even a mostly season of this kind of stuff. I just don't know. Fans, it's becoming really obvious just watching those matches how important fans are to just the whole thing. And I guess I never really kind of thought of it that way, but it's super obvious just how integral that is to just the whole experience, the presentation, the players. Without fans, it's really not a sporting event. I don't know of a better way to describe it.
Yeah, it's funny. They still went over and applauded the vacant supporters section.
Yeah, they went over to the yellow wall and
they did the the arms raised. Hey, I don't know if there's a name for it. Hey thing, which like most teams do. But they did it, spread out, but not holding hands. And, it was pretty surreal event. That we'll definitely talk about for a long time.
I mean, can you imagine? So, given what you saw over the weekend, can you imagine college football coming back in that fashion?
It would be very strange. College football, much like soccer, especially European
it's probably
soccer,
a pretty good analog, right?
It's very, it's because it's very much about community and like that sort of like deep connection to a team, and just about passion, like passion fan. You can kind of equate, like I know you and I love the Sounders matches because they kind of have that college atmosphere.
They do.
Because you have those giant supporters sections, and Dortmund's got one of the biggest like ones. Like I talked about that grandstand, it's just like enormous, and it's known as one of the loudest and most raucous, and it's basically like a student section at a college football or college basketball game, and so it'd be very strange to. I mean, I know we've watched WSU play on Thanksgiving break and there's been but even then there's still like a couple thousand students in there, even when WSU plays in Beasley on Christmas break, there's still like 1,000 people in there, 500 people in there, and those, just like you said, the 500 people make such a difference.
Even some is a massive difference from none.
Well, yeah, that's what I was saying. It was so different from when the college basketball tournaments were doing, just the friends and family, versus what Bundesliga is doing is like
nobody. Yeah.
And like they're even and the other thing was like the players on the sideline are 6 feet apart. They're like spread out. Everyone's wearing masks. Like, the celebrations for goals were very muted. They didn't like jump into each other's arms and things like that, like they would have in this like what was a rivalry match. There was definitely just a lot of the energy because part of those celebrations are fueled by the the roar that you're hearing from the crowd, the
Absolutely.
energy that you're getting from the crowd, and otherwise like that'd be like playing a pickup game and like you hit a three and you like play to no one or something, like people aren't holding up their threes and putting their hands up, running down the floor if there's no one to like play for. So, that'll be definitely different. And there's definitely certain players that feed off that more than others, especially in college football. Like there's certain, if you think of going back a couple years, so Marcellus Pippins, he loved playing. He very clearly loved playing in front of a crowd. He was dancing in between downs and just like putting on a show for everyone.
Yeah.
Like there's other guys that just put their head down, they're going to play regardless. Like it
Right.
doesn't matter to them. But like then there's other guys that just, love the atmosphere, and so that's going to be different from them, and there's a very real possibility that it changes their level of play because they don't have that energy.
Yeah, and they're young men. They are more influenced by emotion than a professional athlete is to begin with. And so then you're talking about you're not just talking about no crowd, you're also talking like no band, right?
Right.
All of the sort of quote unquote pageantry that exists within college football, the stuff that we love, right? We were joking on Slack today because some, Seahawk fan out there was saying that college football is dumb and overrated and objectively bad and inferior to professional football. And we were like, kind of talking about that, but in some of what came up was basically like, well, on a football level, sure, but people who love college football love it for all sorts of reasons that don't necessarily have to do with the quality of play. And all of a sudden, if you had an empty stadium, I think you're kind of doing that for the most part. I mean, obviously, you and I and other alumni still have the connection, but everything else that we love about college football would basically be stripped away, right? I mean, you're not going to Pullman to tailgate with your buddies. You're not going to the stadium. The football experience is not, there's not going to be a band. There's not going to be halftime show. There's not, the raising of the flag, whatever you want to say. All those things they're gonna be gone. So what are you left with? Are you kind of left with what, like a subpar football product? I mean, is that kind of it?
You're left with watching the game on TV and then listening to us blather about it.
I guess. That sounds like a deal.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, I don't know. I think the Bundesliga is maybe kind of showing us what is and is not maybe possible or doable. But, as we talked about last week, I don't know. I'll believe it's canceled when I see it, given the financial stakes. So it's not, as I mentioned, it's not just that people stand to have their salaries paid. It's also the very real budgetary commitments that have been made in terms of, capital improvements and things like that they have to be paid on. So,
right.
Yeah, they're in a tough spot, man. They are in a tough spot. Anyway.
Yeah. Well, I don't really have a good segue to our next topic. But anyway, so let's, every year we get these numbers around this time. So this is just like normal. Our APR numbers, which is the kind of strange way that the NCAA measures it's called academic progress rate.
Yep.
And we got some not so good news from a couple programs with departing coaches. We'll start with the more famous one first. That's Ernie Kent and his 2018-2019 final season. WSU checked in with a very low score in the 870s, where the minimum threshold on a 4-year average.
4-year, yeah, it's a 4-year rolling average.
930. I think it was 876. So that's just what it does in a 4-year rolling average. That puts you in a position where you can't screw up again. But that just means Ernie, who had previously, truthfully, had some good APR numbers, and that's why it doesn't hurt as much. Very clearly on the way out the door, wasn't taking as much care with the players in his program, particularly the transfer ones, Jeff. And I'd love to hear you talk about why those transfers matter and why this is probably the reason for that.
Yeah, I mean, I used to track the APR stuff really closely at Coug Center when the APR was a little newer. It's been around for, almost 20 years, I think, at this point.
Right.
But there was a time at WSU when it was maybe a little more significant. Some people might remember that Paul Wolf had scholarship reductions because of APR problems that preceded him with Bill Doba. So it can have a real impact if you don't sort of figure it out. However, in recent years, I want to say like really in the last 10 or so years, it's pretty rare for Power 5 schools to end up in APR problems. They've made all sorts of tweaks to the system and things, and a lot of that is things that happened sort of after Paul Wolf became the not so lucky beneficiary of the problems of the Bill Doba era. But, so basically APR is just this, you get a point, more or less, you get a point for each athlete who sticks around in school. And then I think they get another point for making satisfactory academic progress during a semester. So in theory, I think if the system's still the way it used to be, which I assume it is, you can earn up to 4 points a year per athlete. Now, when people start transferring, as long as they transfer in good academic standing, it's not a problem. If they leave the program in bad academic standing, then there's a problem, and you start losing those points. And basketball is one where actually it's really easy. Relatively speaking, it's easier to get a low score because you only have 13 scholarship athletes. So if, a couple of guys leave in bad standing, all of a sudden that can really bang your score. And the best way to think of the score, by the way, is they give you a score on a scale of 1,000, but what it really is it's a percent. So when you get a score of, say, Ernie Kent's score this year of 894, what that really means is you earned 89.4% of the possible points from your athletes. And so when you put it that way, it doesn't seem so bad, right? But with basketball, again, it doesn't take much to knock it down. And you can get points back in other ways too. They came up with all sorts of rules to benefit Power 5 programs. When you look at the schools that get hit with APR sanctions, it's almost always like the HBCUs and other low budget athletic departments who don't have the resources to tutor all of their athletes into academic progress. So, I think this is more just probably a reflection of guys leaving after Ernie got fired, my guess leaving in a disgruntled fashion, dropping out of school, not making progress, and just losing points that way. I mean, it could have been, they never tell you who it is or what it is. They cover that up with, FERPA rules and stuff like that. But, it could have just easily been Robert Franks who, finished his season and went, you know what, I'm out of here. I've got a draft to prepare for. And I'm not saying he did that, but it could have been, that sort of deal. So like you said, the important thing to note is that, we had 4 good years of scores, or 3 good years of scores before that. So it's, they're still in fine shape. It's not going to be a problem, but it's still a good reason to be like, Ernie obviously dropped off the face of the earth and some of his players did the same. And so fuck you, Ernie Kent.
Well, and that's it. You run the risk of this when you have a program that has so many transferring players, because you just can't keep track of them. And basically there's nothing you can do to remedy a player if he's left your program. And so maybe if you thought, we just need the rest of this semester to get this guy back in order, and he bails, like there's nothing you can do after that. Like you can't help him get his grades up. Right. That Ernie Kent obviously was a revolving door the last couple of years of that program. So that's one of the ways it hurts you. We also saw Marty Lee's last team recorded a 922, which is of course below the 930 average threshold. So you never like to see that. Again, the baseball team is still in good shape on the 4-year average, and obviously a 922 doesn't hurt as much on the average as like an 894 would. But still, it's cause for concern because, like you said, Jeff, as there are. I do have a question. You said there's 13 scholarship athletes in basketball. I think baseball has 14 scholarships total.
Yep.
Does it count?
Something like that.
But I assume, does any player that has any sort of scholarship count the same?
Yeah, I don't know all of the rules on that. I'm going to be super honest. I think walk-ons might count also.
Oh, okay.
I'm not positive about that though. I'd be speaking out of turn if I spoke to that specifically, but I would guess that at the very least for baseball, any player who receives even just a partial scholarship would be counted. And in that case with baseball, even though they only have whatever it is, 15 or 13 scholarships total, you might have 20 or 25 kids getting a piece of the pie. And so, with that many people on the roster to get a low APR score, you kind of really have to screw it up. And so, just another reason to, tell Marty not to let the door hit him on the way out.
Yeah. And, we saw Theo had a good tweet. Another reason WSU's basketball and baseball programs need to change at the top, and then he quoted the scores. Obviously, those guys were not having success and were becoming maybe a little disconnected. We pretty sure of that in Kent's case. So,
well, it's also worth noting that Ernie Kent's APR scores at Oregon also went in the toilet at the end.
Yep.
His last full season or his last full year there, they scored an 870, and then the year that he was fired, they scored a 912. So, yeah, that's bad. And he was plagued by the same stuff. Dudes transferring out, whatever, all the same problems he had here. So
$11.2 million.
God damn, he's a thief.
Like. I want a job where I can work for 5 years, then get paid for another 3 where I'm not working. Where
At millions of dollars per year.
Yeah, $1.4 million per year. And put in pretty much the minimal effort that is required.
And burn every bridge the whole time you're there and suffer no consequences for it.
Yeah. And right before you retire, so that's all that money.
Dude just disappeared. Like, I don't know if you have gone to his Coach Ernie Kent Twitter page, but it's pretty funny because it's just like frozen in time. It's almost like he died. Like it's just frozen there. It still says head coach at WSU, and what cracks me up about it is, like, I don't know. I guess I would have thought maybe the school would have some control over that,
but then they would
apparently
get
not.
rid of it.
They would, but they have not, because it's still okay. Hold on, I can tell you, he's still Coach Kent WSU, and the last tweet is February 10th, 2019. It says focused. Right before the Arizona game is what it looks like. That was his last tweet.
That is also he had not tweeted very frequently.
No. Which, of course, fits pretty perfectly with his MO.
My guess is probably run by, like, the DBO or someone like that, and, like, they just were like, screw that, I'm done with it. They just left it there.
It is funny, though. Like, I mean, there's not a lot of tweets, before that, so I guess Ernie couldn't even be bothered to do that little piece, I guess. I don't know. It's funny.
Yeah.
You don't have to scroll down very far to see tweets about, I fully support Milan Aqua's decision to transfer, and I appreciate all Malachi Flynn has done for our program. Those are pretty close to the top, too.
Yeah, there was like 4 tweets in the last year. So
whatever, man. Whatever. The guy's a loser.
Yeah, it's so frustrating. He's going to be paid this year just as much as Kyle Smith. Yep.
Who knows? And who knows where he is or what he's doing. I am a little bit surprised that he just went into hiding, because he craves the spotlight, man.
Yeah, he was doing work on TV work in between his last job, and he went out just as unceremoniously from Oregon as at least Oregon, he had some success to point back to, and WSU was just nothing.
Yeah.
and no direction, no positive direction anyway.
But he's a good talker, and people like that. So I'm a little surprised.
I don't know. Maybe he's like on some games back in the Midwest or something. I don't know. It does seem weird that we haven't seen him, because I mean it seems like the Pac-12 network would pick him up, if he wanted to. Like
you would think so.
I guess maybe they didn't want to pick him up the very year after he was fired, and maybe we would have seen him next year or something. We'll see.
Yeah, whatever. I don't know. If I never see him again, that'd make me happy. Part of it is too. It's not just the losing. It's how like I don't feel this way about Paul Wolf at all. Like, I feel like, if anything, I feel sort of bad for him that it turned out so badly, because he seems like a solid dude, and like, he's a Coug, and, so I'm just like, yeah, I wish it would have turned out better for him.
I think it also, like, Paul Wolf, when he got hired, like, whatever, he was paid pretty much a salary.
Bottom of the barrel.
Befitting
salary.
his, status as, like a pretty good FCS, not like a super successful FCS coach, but, like, had,
right.
won more games than he lost.
Right.
And so, but he did, like, you're like, okay, we paid our football coach $600,000 in like 2011.
Right.
Like,
you get what you get at that point.
Yeah. Like, and then we immediately were paying our football coach, over $2 million the next year. So it's like, so yeah, you get what you get. But like, with Ernie, from the start, it was annoying just because it was just like, okay, one, like, he's making twice as much as Bone was making, and he hasn't coached for several years, and then he just comes in. I don't want to, but I think that's part of the feeling, and then also just the way he, just the way the basketball program looked while he was here.
Yeah.
And
I know for a fact he and of course this isn't everybody, like, for example, Jeff Pollard speaks very fondly of Ernie Kent, talks about how he gave him his opportunity and, whatever. So, but I know for a fact that Ernie was pretty shitty to a non-zero number of people while he was in Pullman. And, he just does not seem, honestly, he just does not seem like a good human being. And that, that as much as anything bothers me, and, is kind of stokes the bad feelings I have toward him. I mean, look, coaches lose, coaches don't succeed. That happens there. Look, I mean,
well, yeah, we don't have the feeling of Ken Bone at all.
Yeah, I mean, good coaches fail. Ken Bone didn't succeed. Okay, Ken Bone's not a bad person. Like, when he got fired, I was like, yeah, he needed to get fired, and that really sucks because he seems like a good guy. I was in school when Kevin Eastman was the coach. Look, Kevin Eastman is a hell of a coach. Just couldn't do it at WSU. And if you're like, how is Kevin Eastman a hell of a coach? Well, he went on to have a long career as an assistant coach in the NBA, won multiple championships with Doc Rivers. Like the dude can coach. He's like looked at by other coaches as a coach's coach. He just couldn't do it in Pullman. Okay. I don't hate the guy, right? It's like, but Ernie, it's everything about him, from, again, like I said, the way that I know he treated people to some degree, the way that he talked to fans, the excuse making, the blaming of other people, just everything was just so unsavory. He quite literally did not follow through on one promise that he made. He talked about his number one promise is we're going to get kids degrees. And it was like, at one point I had a tracker. I don't know if you remember this, but I had a tracker tracking how many guys he recruited that actually finished at WSU. And it was like 2 out of like 20 or something.
Right.
He just had literally not recruited any fresh. The big one was freshmen, like high school kids. Like he literally recruited 2 guys who came in as freshmen and finished. And that was, I believe, Viante Daniels and Robert Franks. So, yeah, he didn't do anything he said he would do. And, the APR thing is just, one more Ernie Kent lie. So.
Yeah. I think it just speaks more to, again, like Theo said, like, it was so important to make a change, and I think it's great. This is just kind of reminds us that, and if you remember, we didn't know if they would because of the money part of it, and probably if it was this year, we wouldn't have done it.
Definitely would not have done it.
But yeah, it's kind of crazy to think. Like, it was one day after the Pac-12 tournament loss last year, he was gone, and it's just nuts to think about the year, the year in between, the year and 2 months at this point, but just how it's such a contrast in coaches that we have coming in. We have, an experienced but still kind of relatively young guy, in terms of, and he's getting his first big time, major conference coaching job, and just the energy that he brings, and Ernie had good assistant coaches, so I'm not saying like Kyle's made better assistant coach hires or whatever, but at the same time, just the just the pedigree he brings with his assistant coaches is guys that he's trusted for a long time, and things like that, and it just feels like a better program. Glad we made this change. I do not foresee any sort of APR issues going forward.
No.
So I'm very happy that we're not mad about this, and Ernie's still sitting there as head coach. I'm very glad to have Kyle Smith, and we are of course very glad to have one of the top 40 under 40
That's right.
in the country.
Secret weapon. And he's been on our podcast twice.
Yep. So I sorry if you guys didn't want to hear about us bitch about Ernie Kent for another 20 minutes. I did warn you at the start that we were going to. And also it's quarantine time.
We haven't bitched about Ernie in a while. So
yeah, I know.
God, that dude just gets my blood boiling like very few other things do. I detest him, as obviously anybody can tell now, probably as much or more than anybody who's ever been associated with our university. Like it's that bad. Anyway, he
doesn't really feel like it just felt like just a pass in the night, but it was 5 years. But it was just like
it was grift the whole way, dude. He's a grifter the whole way.
Helped by his good buddy Bill Moose.
God damn it. Thing is, Bill Moose gets a lifetime pass because of Mike Leach, at least for me. As whatever, as shitty as that whole thing with Ernie Kent was, and whatever, he gets by the way, also noteworthy, Todd Schulenberger also hired under Bill Moose's watch. Bill Moose had absolutely nothing to do with it, but still.
Well, yeah, the soccer
Jen
program
Greeny.
just cranked out.
Also, Jen Greeny hired under Bill Moose's
soccer program cranked out good coach after good coach.
Whoever the person was who was doing those hires, because it wasn't Moose, but whoever was doing those hires, my goodness.
Well, yeah, I mean, you get Kidani McAlpine, who's having a lot of success.
Yeah, down at USC.
Yeah, like, and he was here for 1 year. And then Todd's stuck around.
And there actually was another guy in between.
Yeah,
if you remember, for a year.
I can't remember the name.
I am drawing a total blank on his name right now too. Steve something. Oh my gosh, I'm dying now. Anyway, so he was pretty good for that 1 year too. That's the kind of stuff that like crumbles programs, and they didn't. They found Schulenberger, and he's amazing. There we go.
I don't know why he resigned, so I don't remember why that happened.
There were personal issues. It was a family thing.
Yeah, but yeah, they went to the tournament with him.
Yeah.
It's rare to. I remember. I think we had 4 coaches in 4 years, and they went to the tournament 3 of those 4 years, or maybe all 4. Just impressive. But hey, we actually have some soccer to talk about. Maybe we should take a break.
Yeah. And
we'll talk about our possibly greatest recruit ever in any sport, getting a nice feature today in the Athletic. But so let's take a break, and we'll talk about that.
And we're back.
Jeff, before we talk about that, actually, I know I teased the soccer talk, which everyone is dying to hear.
Because there hasn't been enough soccer talk on this podcast.
But let's talk about beer, man.
Yeah. I'm having... Hang on just a sec. Let me grab the can. I'm having a crowler of Structure's Plainsman, which is a lager. And it is okay, but that may be as much to do with me not being much of a lager drinker most of the time as anything else. So it's, pretty typical lager flavor, real bready.
I will fight you. That beer is
I'm sure you will.
Amazing.
That
beer is amazing.
And I will fully say, I believe you, and I'm sure it is, and I'm just not much of a lager drinker, and that's just it. It's not my.
That beer is so well made. Like,
I believe you.
It's it's an American light lager style. So it's basically like brewed like a Busch Light. Like it's brewed in the style of that, and it's just incredible. Like it has, I love the breadiness and the clean finish, and there's none of that strange aftertaste that you get with like a Busch Light or a Bud Light, where you kind of get that white bread sort of lingering feel. Like it's so well made.
Yeah.
Structures is such a good brewery.
If we are comparing it to that, then yeah, it's amazing.
Well, if you can't appreciate a well-made lager like that, then I don't even know why people are listening to you talk about beer.
It's like, it's fine. Like, I don't know. Like, I'm like, yeah, I'll try a lager. And then I was like, yeah, it's fine. But I'm sure like you said, I will defer to you on the craft of the making.
Well, it's not even the craft. It's such a delicious beer. Like you have such a baby palate, Jeff. God, I'm so disappointed in you.
Yeah.
I'm just going to be really condescending right now.
I know. You love to talk about my beer journey, right? I have not moved on to lagers in my beer journey yet. But
you probably still have a couple years, honestly.
I do appreciate a good Pilsner, however. So that's my go-to when I want something that's sort of crisp and light and refreshing.
Well, there you go.
So
you'll find if you can appreciate a good Pilsner, then the craft light lagers aren't far off, man.
Not far off. What are you drinking, champ?
I am drinking just another cellar trip. Amanda and I have been doing great work on the cellar this past couple weeks. This is Matryoshka, I don't know how to say it, from Fort George, the 2018 version. It's a bourbon barrel aged Russian Imperial Stout, very tasty. I had two of them, so I figured I better drink one of them. There's no reason to have two of them. It's very tasty, a great yearly release. Fort George has an excellent barrel age program. I highly recommend. This is part of they do the Festival of Dark Arts every year, where it's all like big stouts. I've heard it's a great festival. I've never been able to go down, but it really sells out super quickly, and the big thing is you have to have some place to stay in Astoria, so that's the hardest part. But yeah, it's a great beer, just very good Russian Imperial Stout. So it's got a big, it's like it probably started out as a pretty hoppy beer and all that, and those beers tend to hold up in barrels when they're big malty get boys pretty well. So yeah, I enjoy this release every year. Fort George was a good brewery. Just across the board, they make a ton of great stuff, and they've been around a long while. I remember the guy that got me kind of accelerated my beer nerdery. My buddy Vic in Vermont, he talked about when he would come back west, like back in like the late '90s, early 2000s, he'd get Vortex IPA from Fort George, and that was like he still like loved that beer because it was just like that he'd come from the east out west and just get the West Coast IPAs, and So Fort George has a lot of, but Fort George, you can only get their beer in Oregon and Washington. So it's still kind of a local place, even though they've grown and they make a lot more beer now, but they still kind of keep it pretty local, and so it's a cool place to support, and they make a lot of good beer.
Did not realize that, by the way, because it's pretty easy to find around here.
Yeah,
and
I mean that's part of it is because they only distribute locally, like they're not stretched, so it makes their stuff easier to find.
Yeah. Well, now I will have a greater appreciation for it, and I'll be like, haha, Idaho, you might have haircuts, but we have the Fort George.
I'm not sure if they don't go to Idaho. They say
let's just pretend they don't. Let's just pretend we have that over Idaho right now, and we'll just lord it over them for a while.
Yeah, it's because they proudly advertise it. Okay, so they do advertise. They do distribute in Idaho. I always think it's weird because they say they proudly only distribute in the Pacific Northwest. I don't know why Idaho is included in the Pacific Northwest. Idaho does not touch the Pacific in any way.
It's true.
Like the Pacific Northwest, like British Columbia is more Pacific Northwest. Come on.
It's true. Absolutely true.
And also the people in British Columbia call British Columbia the Pacific Northwest, which is funny.
Cascadia.
Yeah.
All right, so it's Washington, Oregon, and Idaho, and that's it. So.
Yeah. So
whatever.
So Idaho does get to taste the Fort George.
Just like Idaho, riding our coattails.
They're just like, they're probably just doing that just in case the eastern halves of Washington and Oregon break off and merge with Idaho to form whatever the hell that state is supposed to be.
Yeah. That's fine. Eastern Washington can go hang out with Idaho. I got no problem with that.
Hey, what about Washington State University?
But just make Pullman like its own little like landlocked island in the middle of Eastern Washington.
What about Spokane? WSU Spokane? Our medical school.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. Like, Spokane's okay.
Jeff, I think your statement was rash.
You think so? I don't know. Can we just take pockets of Eastern Washington and be okay with that?
It'd be like, it's like Berlin in Berlin in the Soviet era rule of Germany.
It is funny. I've got some relatives who live in Coeur d'Alene, and we visited them. I mean, I don't know. It's like 5, 6, 7 years ago now, something like that. It was a while ago. And I'm like, yeah, Coeur d'Alene's really nice, and it's pretty, and and I'm like, how's the school system here? And they just looked at me like, bro, like, I'm like, I don't know, maybe I'd consider teaching somewhere else. And they're like, no, you don't want to do that. You do not want to come to Idaho. I'm like, okay. But you live here. Yeah, our kids are all grown now, though. All right, never mind.
Great place to retire.
Apparently. Or go hang out in the mountains with other people.
Yeah.
On that note,
I'll say one more thing.
This went south in a hurry.
We all know Idaho was ahead of a trend on certain types of people that are now in the mainstream. They were well ahead of a trend on that.
Yeah.
But we'll move on.
Yeah.
One of your kids is talking to you.
I know. Atticus whispered something in the microphone. I don't even know what it was. Sarah just banged on. She just got home. She banged on the window and scared the shit out of me. Oh God.
Man. All right. So.
I'm sorry. I'm like all off. I'm
now,
all off now.
Now that we've shit on Idaho and
this
Ernie
podcast
Kent.
Went off the rails, man.
This is a hate ass podcast. This episode, we're hating on Idaho. We're hating on Ernie Kent.
Speaking of soccer, so I know we're transitioning to soccer. I did take the liberty of looking up because I was curious. Matt Potter was the coach who started all of this. He coached at WSU for 8 years before going to Oklahoma, and then that's when McAlpine came, and okay, whatever. So Matt Potter is now, after a mildly successful 8-year run at Oklahoma, he is now the head coach of the U.S. Women's National Team U23s.
Nice.
Which is kind of cool. So good for him.
So he'll, he probably would have coached Morgan Weaver if they were doing anything right now. I think she's still U23. I know she was on the U23 at some point.
He was hired. I don't know. Let me look. Hold on. He was hired back in. Oh no, he was hired in January, so it wasn't that long ago.
Oh, speaking of Morgan Weaver, the Portland Thorns unveiled their new kits, which are jerseys and soccer talk. They unveiled their new jerseys today, and I would never buy one, but they are pretty fucking cool. And so Jordan will get or Morgan will get to wear some cool threads.
How dare
even
you.
though they look terrible.
That's like saying that the Washington Huskies have good-looking uniforms.
Oh, dude, come on! They're black and red. Like it's not.
Yeah, you're right. You can't really screw that up. It's true. That's pretty tough to screw up.
Yeah, but whatever. I mean, they look evil, so that's perfect.
There we go.
Perfect. I can't wait to cheer against Morgan when she comes to Tacoma.
Yes.
Which I should have been doing.
And then yell "Go Cougs" at her at the same time.
Yeah. I'll definitely, like, when they come to Tacoma, I'm going to be, like, in Coug gear, but also cheering against her.
I'll 100% go with you.
Yeah. We'll be like, go Morgan! Score 2 goals, but lose 4-2.
Yeah. That's what we'll be going for. I don't know. Is Morgan Weaver still going to hold the title of best WSU soccer player ever in 4 years?
Well, we definitely got someone sliding in, basically probably going to take over her very position as a freshman, and Trinity Rodman, who is, of course, DJ Rodman's sister.
That's definitely what she's most famous for.
She's most famous for being WSU basketball player DJ Rodman's sister.
She's also related to Dennis Rodman. Did you know
that? Kind of a distant, father-daughter connection. Is that close? I don't know. But I mean, it's just like with DJ, though. Like, in all seriousness, he was not always there when they were not really there that much when he was growing up. And but he has so, and the reason we're talking about Trinity, which great name, by the way.
Yes.
And definitely fits with Dennis Rodman.
Yes.
The name Trinity. But yeah, really cool name. Definitely a dominant athlete type of name. So there was an article by Pablo Maurer in the Athletic today, which starts out, the first 3 words are Washington State University, and then and U.S. Youth National Team attacker Trinity Rodman. So she had a nice feature in the Athletic today, which I highly recommend checking it out if you're a subscriber. Or maybe you can sign up to a free trial or whatever. It's pretty. It might not be the best time to sign up for a free trial, honestly, but like this is a pretty great piece if you want to check it out, or just pay for a subscription because the Athletic is great. But yeah, so basically, big feature on her. Kind of the parts, interesting parts of it. She talks about how she played against Kobe's daughter when she was younger. So she knew Kobe, and then her dad started coming to the games, and Kobe told her that she's a stud, which is pretty cool for her. And then, but basically, she was kind of destined to go to UCLA. She had committed to UCLA, as told in this story, early in her youth career, but really just came to WSU to visit her brother, and then had her mind changed. DJ was dating someone on the soccer team at the time, so that helps. But here's what she says. I went up to visit my brother, and at the time he was dating a soccer player on the team. And so I went up there and got the opportunity to meet the team, to see the school and see everything up there. After I left, I was like, Mom, I friggin' love that school, and it would be awesome to be with my brother. So I think that's where I want to be. Nothing against UCLA. They're so awesome, but I felt more at home. It does say at Washington, but I don't know. I'm going to say that's a misquote from the reporter.
Obviously.
Yeah, so that's really cool to hear. Basically, she came to Pullman to see her brother, and and was like, I mean, I'm sure it was tied to some sort of recruiting visit as well, but I'm sure the soccer staff was well aware that why this is important is she is rated as the top forward at the very least in the recruiting class this year, and potentially one of the top players overall. So Jeff, this is pretty much one of the best recruits that WSU has ever had.
Yeah, and isn't it like so cool? I really think that one of one of our favorite things, we were talking earlier about how sort of college sports differ from, other kinds of, professional sports. And, so much of that has to do with the connection, right? With the community and everything else. Like, look, when I get to go, and I know you feel this way too, we get to go back to Pullman. It's just like, being back in town is just great. Like, independent of the football game, independent of whatever. I mean, look, you and I have, went back for the spring game last year, and we were just like, yeah, dude, spring football game, let's go to Pullman,
And we were going to go this year.
Yeah, and we were going to go this year. So, we love being there. We feel that connection. And really one of the, my favorite things is when I hear of anybody else, it's not necessarily an athlete, but just really anybody else who has that same feeling for the place that I do.
Right.
And so when she talks about, I was destined to go to this place, and then I went and visited Pullman, and I was like, this place is awesome. That's where I want to go.
Also, this place being UCLA, one of like the top soccer programs, and also, like in Southern California and all that.
Right. And so to have that experience of, no, I've now seen what this is, and I think this is awesome. That's the exact same experience I had as a high school student. And, when you hear of things like that, or you hear of current, student athletes who say things, about their affinity for the school and, how they feel about it and things like that. And you're just like, yeah, that's how I feel about my school. Like when you have that same connection, and because it doesn't always happen, right? I mean, there are some athletes who, are just kind of there to do their athlete thing, and they don't really have that much of a connection with the school. But when you hear someone who does, and you just go like, yeah, that me too, right? That just feels good. And so to hear someone sort of confirm what I think, we've believed all along, which is, man, if you can just get them on campus, if you can just get them there and have them see what it's like, experience what it's like, just kind of, in this, like we've talked about before, this might be getting in the way of Nick Rolovich's first real class, right? If you can get them on campus and they can see what it's all about, all of a sudden they realize like it's not just some cow pasture in the middle of nowhere. It's actually this incredible place and this incredible, college town. And, for her to see that, here's to hoping, obviously some of that is her brother and whatever, but here's to hoping that it also has maybe this, this ripple effect outward of, that allows, Schulenberger to take the recruiting up to maybe another notch to where, Final Fours, look, I mean, making Final Fours is really, really hard, but to where being, in that upper tier of Pac-12 programs, which again is really, really hard because you're talking about UCLA and Stanford and USC and, with all the advantages that those schools have built in, maybe this, snowballs into something where WSU has a truly nationally relevant program in a sport, which is kind of wild, kind of blows your mind.
Well, yeah, and you think about it. I'm thinking about the opportunity that Schulenberger has here, and if you think about it, kind of makes you. It has some parallels to like the '97 football season, because you have a player that gets drafted second overall in her league's draft. You have a team that is goes to the Final Four. You could say WSU was, probably was one of the top 5 teams in the country that year, regardless of the final ranking. But a couple, they're 2 close losses, whatever. Then you saw basically Mike Price's staff turn that into recruiting guys that eventually won 30 games in 3 years. And so maybe you hope that Todd Schulenberger can keep that momentum going, that he stays around as well, and just Trinity is just one of what's going to be a conga line of top recruits. Honestly, they got a huge grad transfer last year, and so it's seen as, and that's before they went to the Final Four.
Right.
So it's already seen as I think the WSU soccer program is now, if it wasn't already, like going to the Final Four and having a player with the status of Morgan Weaver, really, we haven't seen a WSU program like have this sort of kind of level of notoriety in a while, and it's really cool that they could. The circumstances came about where they basically could bring in one of the top young players in the U.S. to play, someone who has a legit chance to be on the best team in the world, the U.S. women's team, in the future, and she's come to WSU, so it's pretty cool, and I'm excited. I'm excited to watch her. Just how she describes her game, she just loves destroying people one-on-one. She's just very athletic, and it's going to be fun. Hopefully the Pac-12 network's still playing some of those women's soccer games, and we'll get to check her out. And it just sounds like she'll probably be, contributing from day one.
Yeah, I imagine so. I mean, there's lots of opportunities with the graduation of Weaver for minutes up front. So I'm sure she'll get a chance to jump right in for sure. So yeah, very exciting. Number one overall recruit. I mean, like I don't know. Like it's hard to imagine WSU landing that player, like just in any sport, right?
Well, that's why we found. We joked about it with Andrzejczyk and the first time we had him on about how Todd Schulenberg is probably really grateful that Kyle Smith and Pullman.
Yeah.
he recruited her brother first, and obviously you could probably say this doesn't happen if DJ Rodman's not in Pullman.
No, it doesn't.
There's no way. But still, you got to give Pullman some credit. You got to give WSU. You got to give the staff some credit to kind of say, hey, we have something in place here, and we have a great place to live and play, and they were able to do that. And so it just kind of makes you think, hey, for a lot of kids, like Pullman is a selling point, and we can kind of segue into talking about recruits again for the football team. That's probably where, like you said, where Rolovich's staff is at a disadvantage right now, because all the kids know is that it's this small town in eastern Washington, but they just don't get to see Pullman, and they don't get to experience it with the kids on campus, or even in the summer or anything, when the weather's beautiful and the hills are green and it's wonderful, and you can go to the Coug without waiting in line or anything. But yeah, man, we do have another commit. What is that, 5?
We are up to 5.
What were we talking about 3 weeks ago?
We went from 0 to 5 in like 2 weeks. 3 weeks. So yeah.
Most notably, an in-state recruit, Jeff. Winning the Apple Cup.
Apple Cup victory assured.
Happening. It's done.
It's happening.
In one of the next 5 years. We got it.
For sure. Guaranteed.
For sure.
Because we now have WSU. We now have Washington athletes on our team. So, for sure. Guaranteed.
From the Snoqualmie metropolis. Mount Si High School.
Yeah.
Andrew Edson. Another kid.
I'll bet he shops at the outlets.
That's got to be a given if you're Snoqualmie, North Bend area. That's where you do your school shopping. There's where else would you go?
Like
I drove from Yakima to do school shopping there.
How many slightly flawed pairs of Nikes does he own?
Oh, I have a story about it. We're gonna divert for a second since we're talking about the outlet malls.
Okay.
So the summer before my senior year, my buddy Kevin and my sister drove to North Bend from Yakima one day to do some school shopping, and I had my money from working. Mom and Dad gave Steph a little money to buy some clothes. We had my friend Kevin had just U.S. Cellular, and this was back when like you couldn't just take your cell phone everywhere and expect it to work without roaming or whatever. So he was in roaming when we were in North Bend. We were fine. Like we had AT&T, and ours was fine, or Singular, whatever the hell it was back then. Our phone was working fine. So we were like the ones to like keep in contact with the parents, because we're still just like we're driving and we're like 17, and I have my 11-year-old sister with me. Like it's not like there's reason for parents to worry. We're 150 miles or 120 miles from home or whatever. My sister goes into the bathroom and somehow drops the cell phone into the toilet.
Oh.
So we have no way of contacting anyone. Like we're fine. Like we just kind of go about the rest of our day and do our shopping or whatever. But like we get home and my mom is just flipping out because like. And then we couldn't afford to replace the phone, so we just didn't have a cell phone for a while after that. But it's funny with that, like where we lived back then, the cell phone did not work.
Yeah,
and you had to drive like 9 miles in towards Yakima for the cell phone to work. Like it was like, why do we have this cell phone service? Like this is crazy. But anyway, so that's a nice little divert. That's my story about the outlet malls. But anyways, Andrew Etzen has definitely shopped at the outlet malls before.
Yes, he has.
Like you said, a pair of some irregular Nikes, maybe an irregular pair of shorts.
Yeah,
you get on those nice, those racks that are in the back. You got to go in the back. You can't buy the stuff up front. But yeah, he's a big dude. He's got the size, 6'3", 240, defensive end.
Yeah.
Rated 3 stars and 85, so decent 3-star from by 247. 15th best recruit in the state of Washington. 65th rated weak side defensive end in the country. I love how they break them down that much. Like not defensive
right.
end. It's the 15th best weak side defensive
That's
end.
right. You're a weak side defensive end, not a strong side defensive end like the other recruit that we got, who is 1 inch taller and the same weight, but he's a strong side defensive end. Yeah, whatever. I don't know.
This is another. The second time we've had a kid with a whole lot of smart kid offers.
Yeah.
The academies again, Ivy League, all that.
Yep.
And then more notably football wise, some Mountain West offers: Fresno State, Nevada, San Jose State, and Wyoming. But also some Big Sky schools in there. So you're like, honestly, like. I know I tend to, and I don't know you, Jeff. I tend to judge the recruits more on who's offering them than their ratings.
Yep.
Like, I do like it's good to know that you get these kind of. We were talking about APR earlier. This is the kid you're not going to have to worry about with that. Like, if the kid's getting offers from, Cornell and Yale and stuff, like you're not really going to have to worry about Harvard. We're not going to have to worry about him hitting the books. But yeah, they've yet. I don't know anything about this kid honestly, other than his ratings. he's probably the highest rated recruit they've brought in yet in this class. But there's yet to be kind of a wow recruit. And what does that do? Are we worried about that, or do we still have 20 scholarships to go, or maybe not worry about it too much? Or?
I mean, I think that, we've been over this before, and I don't really have a whole lot different to say, other than it's just, it's a little concerning that the guys that we're getting seem to be the kinds of guys that probably Rolovich would have been recruiting to Hawaii. So that part is a little bit concerning, but, I've also said that maybe that I don't know if that's necessarily an indictment on Rolovich and his staff, because they are so hamstrung right now by the current situation. We just got done talking about how Trinity Rodman comes up to Pullman and all of a sudden is like, this place is awesome, I want to go here. Like, that's happened to a lot of us over the years, and right now they can't have anybody on campus. So that's a pretty big sticking point, a pretty big recruiting tool that they don't have that, a lot of other schools have. I mean, look, if you are a kid in Western Washington and UW is recruiting you, you can just drive on over to UW, right? I mean, even if the campus is closed right now, even if, whatever's going on, you can just drive on over. If you're a Southern California kid, you can drive over to UCLA or USC or drive.
I mean, there's a chance you've been to one of their games before.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's rare that a kid, from Western Washington, unless they have Cougar ties with their family, has been over to Pullman for a football game.
I mean, heck, even kids in Spokane don't always get down to Pullman for a game. So, it's out of the way, and you got to get kids there, and they're not getting there right now. So I don't know. Like, on the one hand, I would be lying if I said it wasn't concerning. The kinds of guys that are being recruited feel very Wolfian, right? And that's so that part's a little concerning. But I also don't. I think I can both be concerned and also say that's not really an indictment on Rolovich and his staff, because they perhaps are victims of circumstance. The only thing I really worry about is that they're missing, potentially missing a window to sell their vision and sell their hope to guys nice and early, because it really seems like those first couple of classes are the ones where you can really, really, really say, hey, this is what we're building. This is what we're trying to do. Come join us. And you can get people excited for that before they have a chance to really look at what you've actually done. Even Paul Wolf was able to do that to some extent early on. It was his last couple of classes that really kind of dropped off. So that part concerns me, that maybe they are, victims of circumstance in a way that is unfair and unfortunate. But, I don't know. I mean, like you said, there's 20 more spots left. So, I mean, who knows how this changes? Look, there are a lot of kids out there who aren't committed because they're just kind of waiting to see what happens with all this stuff. And, hopefully Rolovich can convince some of those guys to join, because, to be honest, the guys we've gotten so far, I mean, look, Edson is, he's pretty much the kind of guy that WSU has gotten over the years,
right.
The mid-tier Washington kid who comes over, those are the kinds of kids that UW's probably not recruiting. WSU, if they want them, they can usually get them. So, and that's not a knock on him. Maybe he'll be awesome, but it's also like, this is the kind of guy that most WSU coaches have gotten over the years. The other kid that committed in the last week, Xavier Young from Tallahassee, Florida, that's a long ways away. He's the strong side defensive end, Craig.
Of course,
being 1 inch taller and the exact same weight as the other guy. In his offer list, it's a pretty decent offer list. He's got offers from most notably Georgia Tech and Maryland. So
some Power 5 offers.
You feel okay about that. And Georgia Tech, again, if you're being offered by Georgia Tech, your academics are fine. So, so that's a good thing there as well. And yay. I don't know. Like, I'm sure he'll be great. Interesting that he committed to. Committed to WSU sight unseen from Tallahassee, Florida. But
considering he had he's from Florida. A lot of his offers are in the South or the southeastern U.S. So yeah, I don't know. Obviously, maybe there is some vision that they're selling him that they can do without the benefit of an in-person visit. So
still no quarterback, which is a little bit of a bummer, but
yeah,
you got 3 young guys, so it doesn't really concern me all that much.
yeah, we got Leach never skimped on quarterbacks.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to have a redshirt sophomore, a redshirt freshman, and a true freshman. So
yeah.
That's not super concerning. And my guess is it's probably not a major priority for the coaches either.
Yeah, of course. And then they also have the quarterback in last class that kind of like Rolovich was probably over the moon to get because he was already committed. So. And
Yep.
Probably a guy that when he was at Hawaii was desperate to get.
Yeah.
But
I would guess one of the 2 guys, either Cruz or Cooper, transfers out.
Yeah, I would think so.
By the end of this year or by the end of camp or whatever. But, you still feel pretty okay with 2 of those guys. And, you've still got, presumably, John Bledsoe hanging out there, recovering from a knee injury. So, you've got a couple guys.
They'll probably sign a quarterback at some point.
Probably. But, yeah, I mean, the guys they've got aren't guys that are going to make you, do a backflip or anything, but, it's solid. You got 1 skill guy, a couple of defensive guys, a couple of offensive linemen. So, feeling right about that.
Yeah. And, I mean, recruiting defensive linemen is
still no tackles.
Still no tackles. Well, we don't recruit defensive tackles at WSU, Jeff.
Nope. Maybe Xavier Young can blow up into a 300-pound tackle.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. These kids are already 240 playing strong or weak side defensive end. That's pretty much as big as our tackles have been the last couple of years.
That's true. So true. Yeah.
I do want to talk about, maybe before we wrap up here, so the NCAA has given the go-ahead to do voluntary practices.
Gotta love voluntary, right?
But that of course for everywhere it's kind of like more has to do with what your local authorities are, what your local recommendations are. But maybe WSU can start doing those voluntary. I mean, if the kids are there, like that's the thing. A lot of these things. You kind of wonder if the kids are actually in town to do the workouts, but they could. I mean, I think Whitman County is moved to phase 2 now.
Yeah, the Coug is open.
The Coug is open, so why not go lift some weights? So if there are kids there, but I'm guessing there's the kids would have to come back. Like
most of them.
I'm guessing they were still off campus.
Yeah,
because when we talked to Coach Andrushek, like he talked about how none of their players were really on campus
except for the international kids who can't really go home.
Yeah, which we don't really have that.
Which is bizarre. Poor guys. Yeah. But yeah, that's not really a thing with football. So
some of the kids will probably just there because you'd probably rather be in Pullman than be at home.
Yeah, and there's definitely some of those. I mean, Bryce Beekman was living on campus, so. I'm sure he's, wasn't the only one. Yeah. So.
Right. So yeah, they can, as long as it's, fine with the school and fine with the, the team, they can start doing, lifting and the
and I don't see any
drills.
I don't see any reason why you can't do that. To be, I mean, like, and I don't know how you feel about all this. I'm as careful as I can be. I get very stressed out to go to the store. Like it's honestly, there's probably other people who feel this way as well. Like it's an anxiety ridden,
absolutely same 100%
experience for me to go to Costco or whatever. But when so that being said, this seems like a very reasonable and logical thing that can be done safely. Like I don't know, like I mean I've seen their weight room. I've been in college weight rooms. I mean there's plenty of space in there. Like, so maybe they're not lifting right next to each other. Maybe they, put an empty bench in between them or whatever. And when they go do conditioning, maybe they just make sure they spread out while they're running up and down the
I'm
field.
sure they'll be taking temperatures and doing all that. So.
Which I think is sort of a silly thing anyway, because you can be contagious before you're presenting with a fever. But, I mean, that just strikes me as the sort of thing that can be done responsibly and from a distance. And if you can do that, then, it makes sense to allow people to do that. There are some things that are clearly not really very safe to do. As much as we all want haircuts, that's one of them. That's not real safe because you have to get so close. But things where it's pretty easy to keep people apart, for a football team in a, maybe not your local YMCA, but your football team under the guidance of a strength and conditioning coach, I think is probably going to be able to do things in a safe way and not get anybody sick. So,
well, I just, if you're wearing a mask when you hit that PR, and you want to let out that primal scream, it's just not going to have the same effect, man. Like, it's going to be muffled by the mask.
That's true. You're like throwing up your PR and you're like behind the mask. And
the guy taking the TikTok is too far away, so he can't really hear you. Like his phone isn't picking you up. And so it's just not great, man.
That's right. Spotters are like, social distance spotting.
Like only if he's
I don't know how
going to
that
die.
Works.
Only run over there if it's on his neck. Like, that's it.
That's right. If he's choking to death, then run in there and pull the bar off his throat. Yeah. So yeah, I think that seems, like I said, that seems like a reasonable thing to do. That does not seem crazy or reckless, and I am all for things that are not crazy and reckless right now. And,
I forgot what is phase 2. 50%. Oh, their hair salons can open on phase 2.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm still not feeling real great about that idea.
Well, I would say, and I got my haircut right before when some of the states were already closing this stuff, but we kind of waited. But I got my haircut on like March 14th.
I wish I had done that.
And then like the next day, well, I had it scheduled because I was supposed to fly out to a work conference the next day, and I was like, well, I'm gonna need my haircut. And then I was like, oh, and I almost canceled it, but I'm glad I kept it. Because it was my hairdresser was already going to, she was like volunteering. It's at the Rudy's. I love the Rudy's. She was volunteering to take her to be the one to be laid off because they were already getting their business hit. But then like the next day they shut them down completely, so all of her coworkers got laid off.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I got my haircut on March 14th, so I'm coming up on 10 weeks without it. But yeah, it's I'll probably go back pretty soon. So what I talked to her about, like they have I know if obviously there's gonna be an issue with the airborne particles, but those places are clean as can be, especially if you go to a reputable barber. Like they have such and their hands are clean. Like they have such strict requirements already. Yes. But yeah, like I assume they'd still be wearing masks and you'd be wearing a mask and like with like all that, no beard trims or anything like that, so it'll be interesting, but I know there's people that are going to be so thirsty for a haircut. Like
you might not get in for a while.
Yeah. Like it'll probably be a challenge. Like, cause I'm used to growing my hair out for a while. I can like grow my hair out for a long time. I'm not really bothered by it, but there's some people like I've talked to the girl who cuts my hair. She's just like, she's like, you're like every 6 weeks or 8 weeks or 10 weeks, but I got people that come in every 2 weeks. Those guys that want to keep it high and tight.
I'm definitely a 3 to 4 week person.
Oh, so you must be getting uncomfortable right now.
I am extremely. I've mentioned this on the podcast, man. My hair is so fluffy right now, and it's driving me nuts. Like if I try to put on a hat, it's just like it just sort of sits on this fluff of hair.
Well, you wear those dad hats.
God, it's so annoying.
You got to get yourself a high crown hat, and you'll be fine.
I have one. I have a Seattle Mariners Cougar hat, so I got one of those. But it's just, it's just
That'll just have to be your go-to hat.
It's just uncomfortable, It's uncomfortable. I don't know. Like I like my hair kind of high and tight and clean.
Well,
and it's just not.
I'm sure you have some clippers in your house.
I do. I could take all this off in a heartbeat, and I have not.
Everyone's teetering on the brink of that decision.
I know, and I'm sitting there, and I just keep thinking, like, do I really want to do it? I don't know if I do. Not like it would be like terrible, but I'm also like, I don't know.
Well, one of the worst parts is that like neck hair you get. So I've been
on the back. You're talking about on the back, right?
Yeah, I've been like
on
blindly trimming that with my razor, like with my electric razor, just blindly trimming it. Because that's what drives me nuts.
And maybe I'll feel better if I do that. Yeah, I'm with you on that. Because maybe I'll feel better.
Maybe have Sarah help you out with that.
I might do that. I might do that.
Because that does make me feel better. Because then you still have those like lines on your neck.
Yeah.
I've been having to do for work these like LinkedIn Live like video sessions like every Wednesday morning at like 8 a.m. So I've been like getting up to actually take a shower before work and like making sure my hair is right. But it's just getting harder every week. Like, because I don't, like, put product. Typically, when my hair is this long, I don't put product in it because I usually only put product in my hair if I'm traveling for work and like, I probably have gotten my haircut in the last week. And so, like, I don't have, like, the right stuff for this length of hair.
Right.
So I'm just, like, putting so much in just so it's, like, swooped over and, like, looks presentable because I got to go on, like, my company's LinkedIn page and, like, talk about whatever and like but one thing that I'll just as an aside just the low bar I have already set as a person who always works from home, who always wears shorts and a t-shirt every single day of his life. My daughter has now taken to calling on the Wednesdays when I'm doing these LinkedIn Live things, calling me Fancy Dada. Because I'm wearing a company polo shirt and I actually took a shower and combed my hair. So it's like Fancy Dada. Still wearing shorts, by the way. Still have shorts on. I haven't put pants on in months. Like, I still wearing shorts. But she's like... Fancy Dada, because I have a polo, a golf polo. Basically, it's like a Nike golf polo with my company's logo on it, and I've combed my hair. Like
this is amazing.
This is my daughter's like bar for fancy. This is where she's
someday she's gonna go to school and she's gonna talk to her friends about what their parents do for work and how and she's gonna realize that what you do is like not normal.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
I mean, she's gonna like grow up because you're working from home. She'll. I presume when she's like 4, she'll go to preschool and whatever. And it's like she's just gonna have this conception of what parents are like. Mom goes off to work, dad stays home. Dad mostly bums around the house in shorts and t-shirts and showers every other day maybe. And it's like, and then she's gonna realize like, wait a minute, like she's gonna talk to her friends and they're gonna be like, what? Like, no, my parents like go to work every day. And she's gonna be like, what are you talking about? That's weird.
She's like, I've never been to daycare. What the hell is daycare?
What is that?
Dada just gets really frustrated and says, it's like, you're going to go lay in your crib for a bit.
Yeah, you're going to go hang out over there for a while Daddy has a Zoom meeting.
Yeah.
That's too freaking funny, man. Fancy Dada. That's now that's what I'm going to call you every time I see you wearing something respectable. I'm going to be like, Fancy Craig.
Which will probably be never. I don't know when you would say
that's probably true. It's like when I used to watch those videos that you made when you'd go to those conferences and you'd do, interview panels and they'd end up on YouTube. And I'm like, look at Fancy Craig.
Oh,
He's wearing a tie. Suit and tie. Look at that guy. Yeah. I wear a suit and tie. I don't own a suit. And I wear a tie about, 3 times a year, maybe.
I mean, I'm pretty much,
maybe more if I have to go to a bunch of weddings.
At those conferences that go to that I used to wear the tie at. Like I feel like I'm a veteran now, and I'm like, I don't need to impress anyone. I'm not wearing a tie anymore. So I haven't worn a tie in years. Like even to these fancy like business conferences, I'm like, nope, I'm just going the suit. Like, because now like even like the CEOs are like up on stage like with no tie on. So it's like no ties, no ties. We don't wear ties anymore except Tony Bennett. He's the only one that still wears a tie.
Sell out. Always. Oh my gosh. We didn't even talk about that. Like they had the 2009 ASU game on Pac-12 Network the other night. Oh. And all of a sudden as I'm watching it, and I was having so much fun watching it and all these old players and like it was just so cool.
I recorded it, so we should probably do a walk.
That would be
maybe
fun.
When we can see each other again. We can do a watch party of that.
Yeah, that'd be fun. I just like all of a sudden the realization hit me that was Tony Bennett's last game in Pullman, and I was like, oh my god, so hard to watch that and remember that. Like it's also really hard to watch and remember that David Harmeling used to be able to shoot threes and how painful that offense was and how maybe different it would have been if they'd had a 40% 3-point shooter.
Yeah. I mean, I have memories of that season being like David just missing 3 after 3 after 3.
Yeah, and eventually basically just playing his way out of the rotation altogether. It was kind of sad.
Yeah. I do remember Forrest like suddenly being able to hit some threes.
Yeah, how about that guy? I think I sent you a text message and I was like, Caleb Forrest might have been the most amazing thing about Tony Bennett. Like, I don't know. Like I'm looking at that guy going, how did that guy become a serviceable Power 5 forward? I have no idea,
and he absolutely
But it
was.
happened. It absolutely happened. Elbow jumper after elbow jumper after elbow jumper.
And he had a lot of elbow in his jumper.
Yes,
sure.
he did. He did for sure. For sure. All right, Fancy Craig, should we wrap it up?
Fancy data to you.
Fancy data. You're not my data. You can't tell me what to do.
But that's still my name, so
you can't tell me
get
what
it
to
right.
do.
But yeah, I think it's funny. Like, I wonder if our listeners like just look at the episode and they go, "Seriously, they talked for an hour and a half again. How did they do that?" But we find a way.
That's what happens when
friends
hang out, man.
Yeah.
If we weren't friends, it probably would be a lot harder.
Oh yeah, if we weren't friends, I would feel no pressure to go like do this every week.
That would be challenging, but that's what makes it worthwhile, man. You know, I look forward to this every week.
I do too.
Get to hang out and talk.
Drink beer.
Bitch
about Ernie Kent.
Talk about our, lifelong favorite soccer team.
Borussia Dortmund.
I couldn't find Dortmund on a map if you had $100 for me.
I probably could now.
I mean, I have an idea, right? It's like it's in the western part of the country.
Yeah, it's in western part.
Okay, so I knew that. Okay.
It's about 3.5 hours north of where PJ is, which is
okay. So
it's I don't know. I knew where Frankfurt is because it was the closest thing to SAP, which is a company I've worked around for a long time. So I knew where, and it's north of that. But yeah, all I knew about Dortmund was the beer style Dortmunder lager. So that was the. And now
we're gonna have to have a party with Dortmunder beer and watch a game, and that'd be cool.
I hope we eventually get to just go.
Yeah, we'll all just fly to Germany, go to a game. Be fantastic.
That sounds great.
I think
because we are lifelong. I mean, as lifelong Borussia Dortmund fans, it feels like
right.
Also,
feels like
Jeff,
destiny.
I'm watching the levels right now, and good luck with my track on this. It is blowing people's ears out. But anyways, but yeah, lifelong Borussia Dortmund fans. It's kind of our duty to go to a game. You know, it's like it's
I'm
our
just gonna
duty.
I'm just gonna tell Sarah that all those miles we've been saving, I'm gonna go ahead and use to go to Germany without her and watch a soccer
with
match.
with Craig and Brian and Michael.
Oh, you wanted to use those miles to go on
Insane.
vacation to Hawaii? I'm sorry. I already booked a flight to go to Germany with Craig.
We're going to Germany in the winter.
I'm sorry. I didn't know. Like all those miles we've been saving with that credit card. Yeah, I didn't think you'd miss them.
We want to be part of the yellow wall, all right?
That's right. Oh,
It's our lifelong dream.
it is now. It
Jadon
is
Sancho.
now. I want some of that for sure, dude.
Jadon Sancho, my new favorite player, we saw play in person
We did and didn't even know
last
it.
summer. Didn't even know we did. We saw our lifelong favorite team last summer, last July.
That's
And
a special
rooted
bonus.
against them. We rooted against them.
I don't know about you, but when we were at that game. So the way we ended up going to that game was you like hit me up and we're like, dude, I got super cheap tickets to go to the friendly against Dortmund, and I'm like, who? And you're like, I don't know, some team in Germany, and I'm like, cool, let's go, you know. And we actually recorded a podcast before that at Flat Stick Pub.
At Flat Stick, we did.
Right? That was our, God, we had only been doing podcasts for a couple of months at that point, right?
Yeah.
I think. And so
About 5 months. Yeah.
Okay. And that was that was Dortmund's preseason of the current season, and it feels like years ago. It feels like forever ago. And so but I do remember that when I do remember when we were at the game, I did recognize some of the German national team guys. So like Royce
Marco
and Götze.
Royce.
Yeah, Royce and Götze and those guys. So I mean, I did.
Hummels.
Mats Hummels. Yeah, I did recognize those guys' names. I was like, oh, I've heard of those guys. You know, so.
I don't think Royce did he play?
I can't remember. I do know that Götze played. I remember that.
Yeah.
And I do remember
Sancho
that Hummels.
came in
I'm pretty sure
late
Hummels played.
and made our Sounders boys look terrible.
I'm sure he did because he's a ridiculous athlete. Gosh, I'm telling you
my
guys,
favorite player for 2 months until he goes and plays for Manchester United.
I think he probably sticks for another year or at least one more window.
Did you see? Well, so his transfer evaluation, whatever. If you're still listening to this, I don't care.
I know
we're just gonna keep talking.
We're an hour and a half deep into this. If you're still listening and you don't want soccer talk, just turn it off. Just turn it off. It's okay.
It's fine. Go Cougs. It's fine. It's done. Whatever.
Yeah, go Cougs.
Subscribe,
Craig and I are
whatever.
talking soccer.
Yeah,
so.
whatever. So,
This again, like we've told you, this is for us, not for you. So
yeah, well,
there you go.
especially in these times.
Yes, in these difficult times.
Now more than ever.
Now more than ever, we need
Coug
Brucey
Center
Dortmund talk.
We need Brucey Dortmund. But I saw his transfer valuation is supposed to be like 120 mil.
I know.
But,
I don't know what they paid for him, but probably less than half of that.
No, they paid nothing for him.
They got him on a free?
Yeah, they got him on a free transfer.
You're kidding.
Yeah, because it
Holy
was when he was
shit.
super young.
Yeah, and I know he was
Oh
with
no, maybe
Manchester.
I'm thinking Gio Reyna. Actually,
I don't know. He was with Manchester City, so hold on, let's look this up.
Maybe it wasn't a free, but it was cheap. It was because it was when he was pretty young.
Okay, hold on.
Do the transfer market.
I'm
website.
looking here. Hold on.
Yeah.
Do.
This is good podcasting.
Yes. Well, it looks like Manchester United is coming after Sancho.
Yeah.
I mean, part of the problem is with Sancho.
Okay, so,
part of the problem with
it
Sancho
was,
from...
No, dude, it was the 8.62 million.
Yeah, there you go. Oh, my God. 8.62 million!
Basically nothing. Because I did see an article the last couple of days that said that Dortmund, given the current state, might do lower than market value for him, but Dortmund's gonna come clean with a cool 100 mil.
I mean, it looks like City wants him back. United also want them. The issue is that he's British.
He's an English kid.
So
British
that's the main issue. I think is probably, Bundesliga. I'm certainly no Bundesliga expert, so take that for whatever it's worth. But it seems like, the Bundesliga can hang on to German guys. They seem to be okay with a lot of American guys because, Americans don't necessarily have the ties to the Premier League, but other nationalities seem to want to get to the Premier League because that's where all the money is, and so and especially with Sancho being a British a young British man, his goal is probably to get back to the Premier League. So, which totally understandable. I'm sure with Haaland, it's also the same deal. I mean, I know he's Norwegian, but I presume that his eventual goal is to get to the Premier League as well. So, but look, Dortmund's going to make a mint on those two guys. So, you hope maybe you can turn that and flip that into something else, and
buy some veteran players.
Yeah, and become a European power. They're still, they're going to be in the Champions League again after this season.
Oh, for sure.
Even if they don't, if they don't catch Bayern, which they have a chance to do because Tuesday they've got big matchup with Bayern in an empty stadium.
They should beat Wolfsburg, and then they'll probably be 4 back of Bayern.
Should be. Yeah, and even if they beat Bayern on Tuesday, they still might not catch them just because Bayern might not lose again. But you never know. This is all very weird. So
this is our favorite team of all time. So,
absolutely.
I mean, I'm in this till I die. So
yeah. And by the way, for if anybody is listening to this and thinking like, maybe I'll do this, Amazon Prime has a series on Borussia Dortmund from a couple of years ago or year and a half ago, something like that. And it's 4 episodes. You can learn all about your favorite team of all time in 4 episodes. And it's in German.
So Haaland, speaking of him, he was not that cheap of a transfer. $22 million from Salzburg.
No, they had to outbid some people, but $22 million is still
transfer
compared to the $100+ million they're going to get for him eventually.
Yeah, like they'll probably next year for him for definitely no sooner than next year.
I mean, people are already saying like, oh my gosh, how did all these other bigger clubs miss out on this guy? So, but transferring from a smaller club to a bigger club is it's never a slam dunk. I mean, Pulisic went from Dortmund. So Christian Pulisic, people may, if you're just sort of a casual soccer fan, you may recognize his name as a U.S. men's national team player. He was at Dortmund and then transferred to Chelsea during last offseason.
Yep.
And it's been a mixed bag for him. It hasn't necessarily been a smooth transfer. He's gotten kind of limited opportunities, and he's had a little bit of injury issues, and so it's not always a slam dunk for guys to transfer out and transfer up. But there is the big pay. You do get one, big payday, so that's always nice.
Or Sancho and Haaland, just stay with
just
Dortmund.
Stay there. Absolutely.
Let's win.
Let's go win a Champions League.
Let's win Bundesliga. Let's win Champions League.
Yeah.
Let's do all of it. Bring glory to this town that you're not from at all, and you're like not even in a country that you're from. Bring glory to it.
Absolutely. I mean, really, just hang on for a couple of years. Just a couple of years. The Premier League they're 19. The Premier League will be there in 2 years. It'll still be there. That's what I'm saying. Jadon Sancho is a cheat code, though.
Yeah,
that's no joke.
Literally in FIFA, I know you haven't played with Dortmund that much yet because you've been.
Oh, that starts tomorrow.
He literally is a cheat code in FIFA, and Haaland on the ball is incredible.
Yeah.
And of course Royce is incredible too.
Yeah.
Like it's just you're gonna go from playing with the Sounders and then playing with Dortmund, and you're like,
I mean, I
got toys.
I'm trying to remember, but I think Sancho has something like 15 goals and 15 assists. Like there was a stretch there where he was involved in seemingly like every single goal that Dortmund was scoring.
I watched the highlights of all his last season's goals and assists and this season's goals and assists today.
Yep.
Very impressive.
Yep.
Very impressive stuff.
Yep.
All right.
Super good.
Well, now that you all got your, now that you're all Borussia Dortmund fans,
Hell yeah.
be sure to subscribe to Dortmund Talk.
Man, the highlight of my week is going to be Saturday morning when we all get on Zoom and watch that match.
Oh hell yeah, dude! I've been looking forward to that. Like every day, I'm like, what day? Oh, it's Tuesday. It's went like, I can't wait to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning. And well, last week I couldn't start with a beer immediately. I went with a Irish coffee, and then not a full Irish coffee. I didn't have the whiskey in it, just the Irish cream.
Yeah.
And then at halftime, I went with a lager.
Yeah.
I'm hoping maybe to find some Dortmunder lager, but I've been looking. I can't find many. Maybe I'll just get some generic German lager and call it good.
Yeah.
But yeah, well, Jeff, I look forward to that on Saturday morning with our boys on
That's
Zoom,
right.
using my company's Zoom account so we can chat for as long as we want.
Yeah.
By the way, my company encourages that. They said feel free to use it to stay connected with your family and friends. So
That's pretty great.
I don't feel any guilt in doing it.
I can tell you that my school district definitely did not encourage me to use my Zoom account for those purposes. That doesn't, that's not surprising for my district.
Yeah.
So.
But yeah, so if you're still listening, you very
God
clearly are
bless
subscribed. You're probably
God bless
subscribed,
you.
or you're just like, I don't know. You
Forgot
have some
to push
amazing
stop.
like search functionality that you created yourself, and you're a huge Borussia Dortmund fan, and you found us some way, like just by the audio, like you have an audio search functionality that you're ready to sell to some big company, but. Otherwise, if you're still listening now, you're definitely subscribed. But if for some reason you're not, you should subscribe and you should give us 5 stars. If you listen through this last 20 minutes and then got mad and don't want to give us 5 stars, that's your own fault. We told you to leave.
We told you could stop.
We told you to stop. So don't worry about it.
Okay.
But yeah, whatever, man. I don't feel like plugging anything else.
Nah.
But I will say, go Dortmund and go Cougs.
Go Cougs.